It's time for the Court Report, our bi-weekly segment with the Upper Midwest Law Center. They are a nonprofit public interest law firm on the front lines, dedicated to defending constitutional freedoms and the rule of law.
Love having him on. He's Doug Seaton. He's the guy. He started Upper Midwest Law Center. I love having him on. Sir, how you doing this week?
I'm doing very well, Al. Thank you. And I hope you're well.
Oh, everything's fantastic. I, of course, try to follow along as you come on the show every couple of weeks. You've got another new lawyer. What's his name? Robbins? I'm going to make sure I get that. Robbins,
yes.
Right?
Brent Robbins. Yes, we're very glad to have him. He's hit the ground running, and it's going to be a lot of fun to work with him in addition to the rest of our team. He's great.
And I presume, because you're not a huge firm. I mean, I don't want to be, I'm not trying to be mean here.
Yes.
But as you put new people on, like Mr. Robbins, does he specialize in something that you need? Is it all about just being at the appellate court? What do you look for when you're? Tell me about Brent. Maybe
sure.
The easiest question.
Brent has got a wonderful background. He's been a lawyer for many years. He's last been in senior positions at General Mills. In fact, I don't think that's any secret. He was offered the general counsel's position and declined in order to come to work for us part-time for about 1/20th of the salary.
Wow.
So we're honored. We're blessed. We've got a lot of lawyers like that who've given up bigger salaries they could earn in order to do the right thing and join us and fight.
Yeah. And that's kind of the thing. If you guys can have your own tagline, but you guys fight the fight for the rest of us. I don't, it's kind of like the omnibus bill, which I'm on the show all the time saying this thing just doesn't fly. I don't like it. I read the law. And you guys fight for, was it the Minnesota Gun Caucus, Gun Owners Caucus?
Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, okay. That's right.
So you go to them, they say, hey, this isn't right. They can't just do this and bury it in the bill. And you go win that fight. This could change the way we do things in Minnesota. Where does that sit today?
Yes, I'll give you the quick lowdown and the new news on that. That bill, as many of your viewers know, was 1,400 pages. It was, again, a violation of our single subject rule in our Constitution. 44 states have the same thing in place. And what it says is you can't have a bill that's conglomerated of a bunch of other things. You have to have a bill that stands on its own as a real subject. And of course, it have components. It can have different components, but it has to be one subject. That's so the citizenry know what's being voted on so they can hold people accountable for those votes, yay or nay.
Let me interrupt you if I can. Interrupt if I can, sir, because I read it. I didn't know it, but I'm no lawyer, but I pulled it up, and it's about a sentence and a half long, this whole law in our Constitution. It has to do with one subject, and the title must tell you what it's about. That's what it says. How do we get to a point where this Gun Owners Caucus thing came up in the same bill that parental rights came up and all this 1,400? How did we get to this point? I presume there are lawyers that are in the government that must know that's wrong.
Yes, there certainly are. I used to be one of those legislative lawyers, and of course they are, and some of them did tell the legislature, you can't do this. I had Doug Seaton personally had the bill 20 years ago against Ventura and Carlson. It wasn't their fault, but the legislature did the same thing, and it was only 300 pages then. And the court said, you can't do this. Don't do it again. We're going to pull this piece out. But next time, be warned, we may strike the whole thing down. And that's what we hope the court does this time. This district judge hasn't done that so far. But he said the whole thing is no good. It's all unconstitutional. But the Gun Owners Caucus only has this one issue. So I can only give them that piece. That's a complete remedy for them. That's my limit. That's what I'm doing. But I'm telling the courts on high, take a look at this again and strike this whole thing down. That's what he said. And that's what we're continuing to say in the appeal that's just taking place in this case now. Now we're going on up to the appeals court or the Supreme Court.
Well, who appealed that? Who appealed that? Because you won. So you're telling me the Attorney General's office said, we're going to appeal this. Doesn't he run the risk of blowing the whole thing up? That if Yes, they do. And in fact, they've admitted in open court that it's unconstitutional. So all they're trying to do is convince the court, you should stay out of this. It's a political issue. You can't really adjudicate this as a court. Well, they've already decided they can, and they do, and they have. And so we hope that the court will take it up on that square term and say,
you can't do this again. We're going to have to strike the whole bill down, start over.
How in the world could they tell the Supreme Court, you're not allowed to tell us how to read the Constitution? I'm not a legal guy. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't. And there are some issues that the courts have said from time to time, well, this is a political issue. They say that about most elements of redistricting at the federal level. There are some elements like that, some issues, but this is not one of them. That's right there in plain English, and it's meant to constrain the legislature. So they can't zip around that and say, well, this is a political issue, court. You can't deal with it. And they've already ruled many times in the past, this is something we can decide, and we are deciding. You can't do this log rolling anymore.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I think it was 2 weeks ago when you were on, we were talking about you had got that busted out of that omnibus bill. This got this whole thing started. You're going to appeal it, which is interesting. How many other, do you know, I mean, do you get to read up on it? I don't know how you guys find out if somebody else sued. How many other people in that omnibus bill are coming out and saying, I want a piece of this. I want out of it. I want my section.
Well, we've spoken to a lot of people. At the outset, we did speak to a lot of people, and the Gun Owners Caucus was the one that was willing to go forward. Mm-hmm. We hope others are stepping up. We've talked to a whole slew of people affected by the bill. We already, United Healthcare has its own separate case challenging this bill. And we have a separate case going on in federal court by Associated Builders and Contractors, who I used to represent. Okay. An old partner of mine, a good friend, is representing them in federal court. They just argued yesterday, I think it was, or a day ago, in the Eighth Circuit Court in St. Louis about this bill, slightly different tack on it. Mm-hmm. But there are several challenges going on, and we believe there'll be more. And we believe that the district court said this bill's unconstitutional. Step right up. And if you were affected by this bill and harmed, you just go to court and say so and point to my decision saying it's unconstitutional and ask the court to give you your remedy, whatever that is. And if these add up to a whole lot of remedies, this whole bill is going to go down.
Okay, hypothetically, because you can't give me free legal advice, but I have a small business and paid family leave, these parental family leave thing that was in this bill is going to affect my business in a negative way, in my opinion. Right? Yes. I'm just throwing it out. How much does it cost me to then go to the court and hope this guy throws it out the same? I mean, I guess I wonder why people aren't flocking to it, and I presume it's a money thing.
Well, there is an element of money, and you and I know there's a lot of political intimidation in our state. No. A lot of people feel constrained to say what they believe and act on those beliefs. And we believe that's part of what's restraining people. But we hope people stand up, because you and I know we don't have a constitution if people aren't willing to defend it. It isn't self-enforcing.
Could you give me, because you're 100% correct. I just get chills when you said that. You started the Upper Midwest Law Center because of that. I mean, you were doing pretty well along the line, and you decided we're just going to do this. Is that what's getting you? We got so far away from what our Constitution meant that you just knew you had to be the guy to get us back, get the ship back righted?
That is absolutely right, Al. Long story, of course, but I started representing small businesses and union employees who had a beef with their union, and nobody would represent them. So those were the two strains I had. Small businesses facing regulators and great big unions that didn't care for the people or the organization. And I fought with those people all the time. And I finally realized we got to have somebody who's willing to do this and not try to make it balance their books, because it just can't work that way. So we passed the hat around in a lot of cases. Personally, I did that. And it worked better than not. We stopped Governor Dayton from imposing unions on child care providers. Biggest battle there ever was in the union wars. 5,000 people said no to the union. We won. But you can't win them all that way. So we said we got to have an organization that does this, and we got to have people willing to back it up with their pocketbooks. And so it's nonprofit. Nobody's making any money here. I say, we just said a minute ago, there are lawyers who are giving up way more, leaving way more on the table to do this fight than they could. They could go elsewhere and fight and fight for big companies and whatnot. And we don't denigrate that. That's great work. People need to do it. But that leaves a whole lot of interstitches that don't get represented. People don't get represented. And we have people contacting us and asking for help. and we have people helping us. We say we've got donations ranging from $5 to $100,000, and we take all comers, and that's how we keep the boat afloat. And we're one of the few in the country that does it that way.
Let's go down that on the other side. What I want to do before we go to the commercial break. If you're listening to the show and you've been grieved, you've been heinously treated, I call the Upper Midwest Law Center or I contact you somehow. You obviously can't take every Al Travis that comes along, and if I were to contact you and I say, here's my grievance, and you say, it doesn't fit us, but I know a guy, do you get me to a decent place, or it's just like, it's not ours? What happens? You can't do every lawsuit that comes along. You can't. No, we do our best, and we consider ourselves part of the conservative constitutionalist movement. So if people contact us, we try to give them some guidance, some direction, even if we can't take the case. We can only do so much, as you say. Yeah. And sometimes we've done a couple cases in an area, we just can't keep repeating it. We have to move on to another area of law and hope other people pick up these precedents. But we know it's tough out there, and we know a lot of the plaintiffs' bar is unwilling. I've heard them say so at open forums. We won't represent these white people who think they're getting discriminated against, or these religious people who think they're being discriminated against, or these Native Americans who are Christians who think they're being discriminated against. Those are some of our clients. And they say, oh, no, we can't do that. So we're willing to do what we can and refer people where we can't, or tell them this is really not, unfortunately, an issue that's got a legal remedy. But here's something else you can do. Yeah. Well, you guys got something on the ball, because I honestly, especially with this omnibus bill win that you had, and we'll see what happens. This could be huge for the state of Minnesota. Somebody wants to go to Upper Midwest Law Center, UMLC.org. You'll see the donate button right on the top of the page. We'll talk more with Doug Seaton right after this.
Are you tired of government overreach and the constant threat to your constitutional rights? The Upper Midwest Law Center is your legal sword and shield. We're a nonprofit law firm fighting every day to defend free speech, religious liberty, and the rule of law. We secure landmark victories that restore school neutrality, protect property rights, and hold government accountable. Our mission is to ensure liberty endures for all Minnesotans. So if you or your business is facing a constitutional violation, we want to hear from you. Learn more and support our work at umlc.org.
Dust from gravel roads and driveways does more than make your car dirty inside and out. It gets down into your lungs, and it's bad for your health. Now there's an environmentally friendly solution for your dust problems. It's called Dust Lock. Dust Lock can control all your summer dust problems with just one application. Protect your vehicle and your lungs. Learn more at dustlock.com.
Easily offended? The Al Travis Show is not for you. The Al Travis Show. All sides are welcome.
We've got Doug Seaton in with the Upper Midwest Law Center. Love having him here, sir. And we didn't talk about this, but if you don't mind, I'd love your feelings on it. You have an unbelievably great post about what happened with Charlie Kirk. And obviously, you're a constitutional guy. You love the First Amendment. If you don't mind, could you give me your blush on this? What are your thoughts on what happened with Charlie Kirk?
Yes, thank you, Al. Yep, we're as moved as everybody is by what happened, and from our point of view, our take is this: he inspired an awful lot of people to patriotism, to defend the Constitution, took on the left peacefully, like we do. Yep. And so that's our connection to all this. We represent a peaceful solution to the remedies we think are necessary to reinstall, I guess I'll say, our Constitution, to defend it, advance our freedoms, and do that within the framework of the Constitution itself. We simply use the written word and the spoken word in court with cases to advance those things. And so we represent, like Charlie, an alternative to the violence and to the intimidation regime that we see too often, and everybody can take some blame for this, but I will tell you, it's mainly the left that engages in this violence, and they've done it and promoted it and used the slogan "by any means necessary" since the 1960s and earlier, and they are the main source of the trouble, and they are the main source of the offenses that we fight in the courtroom ourselves. Now, we'll take on anybody who's beating the citizenry with violations of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, it's mainly the left that does it. We're nonpartisan. It doesn't matter politically, Democrat, Republican. We'll support conservatives. Our clients include Democrats, Republicans, the whole group of people who challenge police defunding under our banner and with our support in Minneapolis. They were all Democrats. One was former council member Don Samuels. Mm-hmm. And so we will represent anybody who won't get represented, who's fighting the good fight. And that's exactly what we think Charlie was famous for. He would take on all comers. He would discuss with anybody. And from our point of view, that's one side of it. We are doing the same thing, working with words to advance justice for all. The other piece of it is, of course, we were personally subject at Upper Midwest Law Center to violence ourselves. Now, no one was hurt. It was late at night, but our offices were burned, firebombed with the Center of the American Experiment and Take Charge. We were linked in the same building, the same end of one building. That building is still basically a ruin. Now, we've got new offices. We're still all together, all three of those organizations, but we've suffered violence too. So we know what that's like. We're the alternative and the antidote to that, doing what we do, and we hope everybody sees it that way.
Love the answer, but now let me ask you this, because you're a smart man. How does this change that conversation in America? Is it making people wake up and say, hey, there is a First Amendment for a reason? Do you think it's positive? Is it going to end up looking back in history and this has made a positive change? Is it going to scare the death out of people that people don't want to speak up and spread their mind? How do you think this affects America overall?
I think it is positive. It remains to be seen if it will stick. We know we've had kind of pauses in the velocity of rhetoric in the past, and then things have unfortunately settled back into pattern. We once had a period in American history, I'm a historian before I was a lawyer, called the era of good feelings, and it didn't last that long. But I think we could be getting there. I certainly hope so, because this is a bad road we're on. Yeah. If we have some polls say 15% of the people or something said it was okay to kill President Trump or people like that in his camp, and we can't survive as a nation if people keep believing that. So we have to take back. I used to be a professor. I used to teach history in college here in Minnesota and back in New Jersey. And I can tell you there is a left-wing phalanx running those colleges that has to be dislodged. And that's not going to be easy. And they always claim academic freedom in order to suppress the rest of our opinions. But it must be done, and it has to happen soon, or we're going to have more and more generations who don't understand anything about the country, about freedom of speech, or our Constitution, and that would be a death sentence for the country.
With the last 30 seconds, sir, how does someone get a hold of you to either donate and or say, hey, I think I have a lawsuit for you?
Yes, please. Thank you, Al. We've got a couple of ways to do that. I'll mention our address, which I know you see on the screen from time to time as well. 12600 12600 Whitewater Drive, Suite 140, Minnetonka 55343. 55343. And then if you just put Upper Midwest Law Center in your search engine, you'll find us. We're right at the top of the screen. That's our website. We've got an Anadot portal there. You can easily provide a donation directly that way as well. And some people do it monthly. Some people just send us a check. Whatever your means is, great. So please help us if you can. Keep the show on the road. We're there for all of us.
I appreciate you, sir. Thank you for doing the show. We'll do it again in a couple of weeks. Fair enough?
Thank you, Al. Take care now.
That's the Court Report with the Upper Midwest Law Center, with some insights into their mission to defend liberty and the rule of law. For more information on the cases and issues we discussed today, and to learn how you can support their fight, visit umlc.org. We'll see you in 2 weeks for the next Court Report.